I'm gonna actually say that again here once it gets live on YouTube. So give me 1 second. You can chat with whoever is with you while you're watching. If you're home alone, you can chat to yourself. Okay, hold on a second.
That's our
Home
problem is
Alone.
we get on and then we start talking about good things, important things. We're like, oh, we have a webinar to start.
I know. Next time we should just hit start and just talk.
Yeah.
Oh, David's here from Colombia again.
Yeah.
Yay.
David, yeah. My daughter was lived in Colombia for a few months. Uh,
Okay.
Where in Colombia?
Dang it. I don't recall the city that she was in. I lived in Venezuela
Mhm.
30 years ago, but and I knew a lot of Colombians. But then Venezuela kicked out all the Colombians. That was a sad day.
Mm.
So you were from Venezuela or you were there. Where is your wife from again?
She's from the East Coast, from North Carolina.
Okay, but her family is from where?
Her family's from Mexico. Yeah, Puebla.
Puebla. Okay.
Medellin. We have
Yeah.
people in Barton who work from Medellin, David Brown.
Oh, really?
Yes, some
Huh.
of our agents are in Medellin.
Cool.
They just had a flower festival where they make these big flower platforms, put them on their back, and then they parade through the city. And I think it's related to maybe a saint, and it's absolutely beautiful. It's like a carpet of flowers. The Festival de Flores. Yes.
Cool. I love it. All right. Well, we're live here on YouTube. So, those of you watching us there, hello. Feel free to say hi as we go through this today. If you're on Zoom and want to ask questions, I would be grateful if you could post those in the Q&A, just a little bit easier for us to monitor those there. And we want you to ask questions. So, post those there. We are going to chat about heart disease, the basics of what's going on in your body, what we can do about it, etc. And I just want to mention that Dr. Saunders is a doctor, but he is not your doctor. He doesn't know your whole story. So please consult with your primary care person before you implement any of the things that we talk about today. Okay. Oh, that's fun. David wonders if he can buy supplements through your agent.
No, you have to
Doesn't
buy
work.
them through our store. Sorry, I was about
Yeah.
ready to type that answer.
That was very kind, though.
Yeah.
Love that. That's cool. Okay, let's do this. Let's get started. Boy, I don't even know where to start with this one. Dr. Saunders, I know you have kind of prepped this a little bit, but I think it'd be good to talk about maybe what's going on in the body uh, when you start to maybe have some heart issues.
Yeah. So the thing about heart disease is it's not a single entity. And most of the time when we talk about heart disease, we're talking about cardiovascular disease. And that means the blood vessels of the heart are getting blocked off. And so we could start with that and then move on to other types of heart disease. So cardiovascular disease is not a um, it's not what you were told. Everything you were told is actually wrong because of something we call association. There are things that are associated together. If you have inflammation, then you're more likely to get clots in your blood. And so if you get clots in your blood vessels, then you can damage the arteries, and the damage of the arteries can cause heart disease, right? So there's an association of inflammation with heart disease. But that's not really the cause. People have a lot of inflammation and don't get heart disease. People get clots and don't get heart disease. People have high blood pressure and don't get heart disease. In fact, if you look at the levels of heart disease, there's hardly a correlation at all with high blood pressure and heart disease. And there's really very little correlation between like LDL cholesterol and heart disease. And yet we're told, oh my gosh, you got to know your LDL cholesterol or else you might get heart disease. And that's not even an issue. It's so low on the list that there are 40 other things that are more important than that, and yet that's the one we focus on. And so let's look at what it really is going on. What is cardiovascular disease? And why do you have narrowing of the arteries? And why is there cholesterol in that? And what's going on here? Okay, so in your arteries, you have a lining called the glycocalyx. And this is a miracle lining. I use the word miracle to mean the hand of God, because it is so awesome. Like, if you've ever heard of laminar flow, if you know anything about the physics of fluid mechanics, the physics of fluid, if you have a pipe and you're running a fluid through the pipe, the outside of the pipe is moving slower because of the resistance of the side of the pipe. In the middle of the pipe, the fluid moves fast. It's called laminar flow. You have slow flow here and then fast flow here. And that's the way fluid moves through a pipe. Well, your blood vessels, guess what? They don't have that. That's not even a thing for blood vessels. And why is that important? Because if you had laminar flow where you had slow flow on the side, you'd be making clots all the time. That's what atrial fibrillation is. Atrial fibrillation, you have the atria of the heart is beating all irregularly. And so you have this kind of slow flow with like eddies of currents going through this atria. And what happens? Clots form. Where do they go? Well, 20% of the time they go to the brain and cause strokes. So that's why they put you on, when you have a atrial fibrillation, they put you on a blood thinner so you don't make clots. Well, so if all of your blood vessels had this laminar flow, you'd be making clots all the time. And then you'd just clot up all your arteries and veins and no one would ever live. So life could not happen without this glycocalyx that is so super smooth. I always like to think of it because it's molecules, like long molecules of sugars that are and amino acids that are not water soluble. It's kind of like it's slippery, like a greased pig kind of thing. The grease just lets it flow and does not allow it to stick at all. And so you don't get clots and you get good flow. And that gets damaged all the time. Like this glycocalyx, it's like this little teeny layer around the outside, and anything can damage it. Anything, even like people that have what's it called? Anemia, sickle cell anemia, where they have these sickle cells and they look like sickles. They have sharp corners on them, and the sharp corners on the sickle cells damage the lining. And what do people with sickle cell disease die of? They die of heart disease, cardiovascular disease. They get really bad vascular disease because their cells, which are just like fats, but they're shaped in a sickle, and they have sharp corners on, they're just damaging the lining, and so you're getting clots all the time. And so that is a very important thing, that lining gets damaged, but it has to get repaired very quickly. And it does. It gets repaired in microseconds, like thousandths of a second is how fast they're generally repaired. If you get a big one, though, where you expose it, then you get more clots. So what's the problem with cardiovascular disease? It's clots. It's clots. Clots are forming. Well, what are clots made of? Well, clots are made of proteins and all the red blood cells that get caught up in there, and white blood cells and all the other stuff. And what are the cell membranes made of? Well, they're made of cholesterol. That's where all the cholesterol comes from, is all of the cell membranes that are caught up in this clot. So normally what happens? Here's what normally happens. You have an artery and you damage the lining of the artery, and it exposes your the cells, the cells that line the artery, and so that lining, when it gets exposed, its clots. Well, why does it clot? Because it has to. If you damage an artery and you don't clot it off, then you could damage it enough, poke through it, and bleed to death. So exposing those causes a clot to form immediately. Well, when there's a clot there, there's no glycocalyx. So what like in a matter of seconds, this has happened so quickly. You get what are called APCs, these progenitor cells that come in, and they're stem cells, and they immediately go like pave right over that clot, and they immediately turn into the lining of the artery, and they start making a glycocalyx, like boom, 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 just like that, boom, 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 and so now you have a normal functioning artery. Okay, so let's say you're on the highway and on a freeway, for example, and an earthquake comes and splits a I don't know 10-foot hole in the going all the way across the freeway. So now there's this big 10-foot hole. All these cars are stopped there because they can't go past this 10-foot hole. So then what if you had like a ton of cement trucks that just come and they fill up the hole, and it's quick dry cement, and in a matter of a minute or two, it's all paved over, and the cars are all flowing down the highway again with barely disruption in a minor slowdown, temporary slowdown. That's kind of the way it works in the arteries. So then they have to do permanent repairs. So they filled in the gap temporarily, but now they got to do permanent repairs. And some people don't dissolve clots very well. And if you don't dissolve clots very well, those clots stay between the endothelial lining, and then the wall. Oh yeah, see, you can see the lining there, and there's a clot that forms in between the lining and the wall of the artery. And then that's what gets calcium deposits. So when you check your coronary calcium score, you're looking for maybe you're not dissolving clots very well, and that's a different problem. So one problem might be that you make clots. Another problem might be that you don't dissolve clots, because once you pave over it, you can't rely on that forever. You got to be able to dissolve that clot and fix everything and make it functional again. And so if that's not happening, then you're getting arterial disease, and that's coronary artery disease, right? So that is the basics of it. So if you look at coronary artery disease, the problem is not high blood pressure, it's not cholesterol, it's clotting. So dealing with the clotting. So now, if you know why it's happening, then you go, oh, what can I do about that? Well, why are you clotting? Or are you clotting normally and just not dissolving your clots? So you look for all the causes. Do you have excess inflammation that causes clotting? Do you have sickle cell disease or some other blood-borne artery damaging disease? Do you have excessive amounts of acid production of organic acids that are toxic? Do you have excessive fibrinogen that causes clots? Do you have anything that's damaging your arteries, or anything that's inflammatory that causes you to make more clots? So those are the things you're looking for. And then the other part of it is, do you dissolve clots well? And there's one thing that's actually a genetic thing that's really kind of important, and that's lipoprotein type A. So lipoprotein A prevents the dissolution of clots. So then that's a different issue altogether. The problem is not that you're making clots, although that could be the problem too. Now you're not dissolving, you're not cleaning up all of the damage that was done, that where the clots are made. You're not cleaning all that up after it's been paved over. So that's the basics of heart disease. It's just clots.
many people have that problem? Like
The
1 in
lipo
10? Yeah,
the,
3 in 10.
the lipoprotein A
Yeah.
problem.
Hmm.
Um, it's a 10% ish of the
Okay.
population.
So that's considerable. It's not a
Yeah,
small because
yeah.
we have 80 people here. So one or two of you possibly could have it. Not saying that you do, but it is something to look into.
One of you has got it. You've got the gene. Yeah.
Christine, am I on? Yeah, okay. Christine said, I have a high lipoprotein A. Are there things I can do to improve the number?
Oh, that's a great question. Yes, there are things you can do. So, specifically to improve the number, yeah, you can to some extent, but it's really a genetic thing. And so if you tend to be on the borderline, then it's kind of a fixable problem. But if it's really high, then it doesn't. You don't look at that as that's what you're going to do. What you're going to do instead is you're going to prevent clots from happening and dissolve clots once they form. So the best way to prevent clots from happening is to get a high omega-3 index. And that means your omega-6 to omega-3 ratio, not an omega-3 index, the omega-6 to omega-3 ratio needs to be as low as possible. So 2 is great if you can get to twice as much omega-6 as omega-3. But if you can get 1 to 1, the same amount of omega-6 and omega-3, where you have the number 1 in your omega-6 to omega-3 ratio, that's amazing. And that would be a great way to prevent heart disease if you have high lipoprotein A. And the next thing is to use a clot buster. And we actually have over-the-counter clot busters. One of them is called nattokinase, Natto. It actually comes from natto, which is fermented soybean curds. And kinase is an enzyme. And this is an enzyme that dissolves clots. And so if you take that every day, then you're initiating the dissolution of the clots, and you're helping to dissolve the clots every day. The lipoprotein A doesn't inhibit the nattokinase, it inhibits your other clot dissolving mechanisms. So there's another one called lumbrokinase, and lumbro comes from worms. And this is a clot dissolver that's an extract from worms. And so you can say, yes, you're eating worms to prevent heart disease. And then everybody will go, you're crazy. Where'd you get that from? And you'll say, Dr. Saunders. And they'll go, he's an idiot. But it actually is a thing, and lumbrokinase really works, and nattokinase really works. And you kind of have to be consistent with them, because you got to remember, you don't know when your arteries are being damaged and when the clots are forming. So you just kind of got to have it around if you have high lipoprotein A.
We were just talking on the webinar yesterday about detoxing ourselves from these types of things, from worms. That's different, but
That's a
on the
parasite
webinar,
worm.
yes. Yeah. If you were on the webinar yesterday, you know what I'm talking about. Okay, I did see a message from someone saying, I have a lot of inflammation in my body. Am I more likely then to get clots? And how do I check for this?
Okay, so you can measure that. So if you have a lot of inflammation, look at your inflammatory markers. So look at the erythrocyte sedimentation rate, ESR. So do an ESR, and then do a C-reactive protein, CRP. The ESR should be below 10, and the C-reactive protein, CRP, should be below 1, ideally. And you need the high sensitivity one to do that. And then look at fibrinogen. And that's how much of this pre-clot fiber protein that you make that allows clots to be formed. And so that could be a separate thing. That could be a genetic thing, or it could be an inflammatory thing. So fibrin, and then do a D-dimer test. D-dimer is you already have clots, and you're breaking down those clots, and what's left over is this D-dimer as you're breaking down clots. So nobody has 0 D-dimer, because you are making clots all over your body. We always do. And so you look at the level, and you say, well, depending on the lab, different labs have different numbers for them. So you have to look at which lab it is. They just use a different scale. So if I were to give you a number, like one of my labs uses, if it's 450 or more, then it's high. The other one uses 0.5. So depending on which lab you use, then it'll have a different number. But D-dimer test, if it's high, that means you have clots and you're dissolving them. That's how that goes. Okay, so then the inflammatory markers, D-dimer, fibrinogen, and that's all. Yeah, that's how you test for it to see if you have an issue.
All right, I'm typing these out because I know someone's going to ask me for it. So 1 second here.
Here, and
Of
here's a
course.
question while she does that, from John Tudor. I'm an 82-year-old who had clogged arteries and a heart attack from shoveling snow 16 years ago with residual damage. My ejection fraction is 42. He had me wear a heart monitor recently, and I was told I have AFib. They went to put me on Eliquis 2 times a day. I want to keep my meds to a minimum. What is your advice?
Okay. So if you have atrial fibrillation and you don't use a blood thinner of some kind, and you already know you make clots because you have arterial disease, right? And that comes from making clots and not dissolving the clots. So you either have a problem with making them or not dissolving them. And so your risk is relatively higher with the atrial fibrillation for the reasons we discussed earlier. So you should have some kind of clot dissolver. So there's 2 things I would recommend. Number 1, using a clot dissolver. And whether you use that one or you use like nattokinase, lumbrokinase, there's a book called Reverse Heart Disease Now by Dr. Steven Sinatra. And he goes into detail about how and under what circumstances. And so if you want to keep your meds to a minimum, but it's interesting, you're going to exchange medication, Eliquis, for like lumbrokinase or something like that. What's better, this one or that one? Well, the Eliquis, I've had people have bad reactions to them. So yeah, it's kind of toxic. Whereas the lumbrokinase actually dissolves clots. So it might be a better option. And then getting a high level of omega-3. Same thing. So to prevent clots from forming, and then of getting rid of inflammation. If you have like some kind of infection, inflammation, spike protein from the VAX thing, and all that stuff, then you may have to deal with that on a separate basis, individually. So 2 things. Number 1, use some form of anticoagulation to prevent clots from forming. That would be number 1. And then number 2, deal with the atrial fibrillation. We actually talked about that in the book, how the heart needs energy. And when you have atrial fibrillation, it means there's a lack of energy in your heart. So increasing the mitochondria of the heart, and you can do exercise and take supplements to do that. And that would be what I would recommend. Those 2 things.
Right. Let's see. I answered that one. Sorry. David says, when I use coenzyme Q10, my heart rhythm is usually normal, but when I skip it, I get intermittent arrhythmias. Does that make sense?
That makes perfect sense. In fact, if you were to read that book by Dr. Sinatra, who's a cardiologist, by the way, and has done a lot of research on the energy systems of the heart. And that's one of the things he recommends for anybody that has arrhythmias or congestive heart failure, is coenzyme Q10. Some people just don't make it well. And I've had very few cases, but yeah, if you've noticed a difference, then yeah, you should be on it.
Okay, so there are some questions coming in the chat. If you guys can put those in the Q&A, that would be wonderful. So yesterday, Allison had asked us about a plugged ear, and Allison is going to be implementing some of the advice that you had given yesterday, but she's also wondering, would a 3-day fast help to jumpstart it?
Yeah, I've been known to say a 3-day fast will help anything. I don't know. I don't know about the plugged ear thing. Yeah, yeah, it does shut down inflammation. It literally shuts it down. And this has all been characterized chemically. All the chemical mediators that cause inflammation, leukotrienes, prostaglandins, are shut down during times of fasting. So yeah, it could, but I don't have any research to tell you that that's what would happen.
Okay. And Beverly says, reassure me that one major slip in 7 months won't destroy my progress.
Oh, no. You know what? Slipping, there's a concept called repentance that that actually it's a real thing. No matter where you are in life, no matter what it is, you say, I did something wrong. I'm going to fix it. And then you just go back on the program. And it's like forgiveness is a real thing, you know? It's like you don't have to worry about that one time when I ate a ice cream cone when I was doing a ketogenic diet or something. I don't know. You know, it's like, okay, that's in the past. It's gone. Let's move forward. So yeah, it's not an issue.
Look at us going through these questions. Let's see here. Christine says, but if I have thyroid issue and had breast cancer, told to avoid soy, does that mean I can't take it? Is that nattokinase? Is that what we're talking about, maybe?
Yeah, nattokinase. Yeah, yeah, you could take nattokinase if you had. Yeah, it doesn't. Yeah, it's an extract from natto of fermented soybean, and in fact, the natto itself, as a fermented product, is not going to have the phytoestrogens that you would worry about anyway. So yeah, not it's a non-issue.
I see a couple comments. People are looking for all those words we were talking about and all those, the nattokinase, lumbrokinase, all of the testing. It's all in the chat. All of those are in the chat. So if you can look over there, you might have to scroll up, but they're all over there. Okay, Elmar says, what is a sedentary lifestyle? I mean, in numbers. I've read that someone is considered sedentary if they spend more than 7 hours a day sitting or lying down. It means 7+ hours of activity. I don't get how it's possible.
How it's possible to have 7+ hours of activity?
Yeah.
Well, you know, if you look at the research, sedentary is you're not active, you're not on your feet all day. You're on your butt or lying down all day. So those kinds of things, those are sedentary. So if you're sitting in front of a computer like I do most of the day, then you're sedentary. And so how do I deal with being sedentary? Well, I get up in the morning and I exercise. And then throughout the day, I take just a little bit of time out. It doesn't take long, a couple of minutes of walking around every hour, getting up and walking around, to try to get in my 10,000 steps a day. And you know what? I rarely make it to 10,000 steps a day. But it's something I'm working on, and I get it. You know, it's not easy because life today is a sedentary, you know, like everybody's job, because tractors have taken over all the digging and drilling, and all the hard things have been taken over by machines. Then all we have are the easy things that we have to sit and think, and so we sit. Yeah, it's tough. I agree.
I am thinking about getting one of those little walking treadmills that go under your desk. So if you see me on the next webinar and I'm moving, that's why. But how, I don't know. How can you do that without falling? And
I have one.
hiking? You do?
I
Okay.
do. Yeah. In fact, I read something that if it was a study who put workers like me, sedentary people in front of their in front of their computer, they walked for 2 hours, not at like a fast pace, but a very slow pace every day. They lost 8 pounds over a course of like 2 months just by casually walking while you work for 2 hours. I think that's doable.
Are you able to write and type and stuff while you're on that?
I am.
Okay.
Hmm.
Okay.
But I'm not like huffing it,
Yeah.
It's a nice casual stroll.
Yes. Okay, that's good to know.
Oh,
All right, let us know if you have one of those. Let us know in the chat. I'm just seeing a lot of people have them. I have a
If
regular
you have
treadmill,
one,
but
we'll work together. We'll be on
okay,
the.
we'll make it weird. It'll be good. All right. Roxy says, have you done any research on what foods will increase cholesterol? I was, it was talked about a month or two ago. How do I deal with this issue with my doctor because she keeps wanting to lower it?
okay. So I've had a lot of people come up and say, how do I raise cholesterol? Because when you look at the research and you say there is an optimum level of cholesterol, the longest lived people, the people with the lowest mortality rate, have a cholesterol between 210 and 250. So, so you want your cholesterol to be somewhere between 210, 250, and you have all these people that are right around 200 or 180 or 150, and I tell them, well, yeah, your cholesterol is a little on the low side, and I don't know, saturated fat tends to bring up cholesterol, and so, but I don't. I have had people do a ketogenic diet where they're eating a lot of fat and their cholesterol does come up to normal, but that were too low when they were on a vegan diet. But I don't even know. I don't have any research as far as how that works long term. Do people who are on a vegan diet who have very low cholesterol, do they need to be in the 220 to 250 range? I don't know. I don't know if there's an answer for that.
Julie says, does the heart health supplement you provide help increase the energy in the heart?
Yes. Well, we don't have all of them. Like if you were to go to Dr. Sinatra's book, then you would see that he has magnesium is really important. Well, we provide a separate magnesium, so that's why that's not there. The Healthy Heart Support Formula has L-carnitine in it, which is one of them, and that's really important part of it. But then CoQ10 is also another part of it, and then D-ribose. And the reason we don't have D-ribose in there, it's a sugar, but you need teaspoon levels. And people are just not, and they don't need to. You don't need to put it into pills. It doesn't taste bad. It actually tastes sweet. It tastes good. So if you have a teaspoon or two of D-ribose every day, that would be good. But the two main ones that we have in the Healthy Heart Support is the CoQ10 and L-carnitine for energy.
Let's talk a little bit about ashwagandha. I hear a lot about it. I had someone message me the other day and said, I think I may need to start using ashwagandha maybe for anxiety. Is there a correlation, or would that be helpful for someone who has anxiety?
Ashwagandha is another one of those miracle herbs. You know how, like I was telling you before last time, that berberine, every time I studied berberine, it'd be like, that works for cancer. Oh, that works for heart disease. Oh, that works for diabetes. And like everything modern society is dealing with, berberine is good for. Okay, because it helps the metabolism for people who are toxic on glucose, sugar. So because it does that, it's really good for all those things. Well, ashwagandha is another one of those things. Why? Because modern life is so stressful. We don't have like downtime anymore. We don't have, like, people are working. I talked to somebody and I said, okay, here's your issue. Your primary issue is your circadian rhythm is off. And so we're going to put you on ashwagandha. You're going to have to go to bed at 10 o'clock, wake up at 6 o'clock, and be consistent every single day. Don't eat at night. So to get your circadian rhythm back in order so that your brain can function again and your adrenal glands can function, you can start working again. And she goes, no can do. She goes, I have to do my work at night, between 10 o'clock p.m. and 1 a.m. That's when everybody else is asleep, and that's the only time I can get my work done. And I'm like, well, you're not going to fix it. Just taking the ashwagandha isn't going to do it. But ashwagandha prevents the excessive release of adrenal hormones, so that under stress, people don't get overstressed when they have stress. Huh. That's interesting. I never when you're under stress, you don't get overstressed. So ashwagandha, because of our lifestyles, especially in the United States, but really in the world, of not having a good circadian rhythm, ashwagandha is a really useful herb. And if you look at just a wide variety of things, Dr. Dale Bredesen, wrote a program on reversing Alzheimer's, and he's like, ashwagandha is on there, and diabetes, ashwagandha is on there, and stress reduction, ashwagandha is on there. It's a really good herb for a kind of addressing adrenal excess, which is a common problem in a stressed out population.
Okay, good stuff. Ooh, good question here from Joby. What food has lots of omega-3?
Okay, 3 foods. That's all you got to remember. Fish, cold water fish especially, flaxseed, and chia seeds. And that's it. So all the other ones, they say, oh, walnut oil has a good source of omega-3. Well, yeah, it has omega-3, but it has more omega-6 than omega-3, so it doesn't help you. What helps you is to have more omega-3 than omega-6. And everything that we eat, all of the grains and the nuts and seeds and all that stuff, is more omega-6 than omega-3. And if you look at like soy oil, corn oil, it's like a lot, like 30 times more. But even like avocados and olive oil, people go, olive oil is good for you. Yeah, it's fine. It's omega-9. It's good for you. But the omega-6 to omega-3 ratio is 13-1. So you have 13 times more omega-6 than omega-3. And it's not a big deal if you're like taking a fish oil supplement, because there's very little of it in there. But if that's your only source of omega-6 and omega-3, then it's a bad ratio. So that's why there's really only 3 sources: fish, cold water fish especially, but sardines are good. It doesn't have to be. You don't. Well, if you like sardines, that's great. And then means what was cod? What?
Flax.
Chia.
Yeah.
Chia.
Yeah, flax seeds, chia seeds, right? Yeah.
And then Julie asked about hemp seeds.
Yeah, and hemp seeds, they're okay. They are a source of omega-3, but they also have a lot of omega-6, so they're not actually as good.
What about nuts?
Yeah, and most nuts, like walnuts, are okay for omega-3, but most of them are kind of like almonds, are 16-1 omega-6 to omega-3, so they're not. I looked it up because I had somebody who says, well, I eat a lot of nuts, a lot of almonds on my ketogenic diet. And so I looked it up, and that's why he had a 10-1 ratio omega-6 to omega-3. If it was coming from almonds, he has a lot.
Okay. And here's another alternative. I love that Dr. Saunders is always letting us know what foods are best. If you're not able, maybe you don't like fish. I guess this would be another option. Or
fishy burps.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I love this. My whole family uses this omega-3, and it's really pretty. It's a nice bottle, but here you can see more information about that. Recommendation is 2 soft shells per day. Soft gels, not shells.
Yeah. I was thinking of that too. What?
And it has a lemon essence, so there is no fishy taste, because I don't like fish, so it does not taste like fish.
I know.
No, it doesn't. It's good.
You can find this at bartonnutrition.com. If you use code webinar25, that is one word, you'll save 25% on these supplements. So I was actually making my list earlier today of supplements I need to reorder. I use a lot of our supplements. We have really, really good, important supplements.
And you know what? When I buy them, I use the code webinar 25 to get 25% off. And I buy them just like everybody else. It's not like, oh, I work for the company, therefore I get free ones. No, I buy it.
Okay, but Dr. Saunders, you let me know the next time you need to order some.
I was
get
gonna
it.
say, I'll
I'll
help you
figure out a way for you to get some.
Or Norman says omega-3 is on my wish list. So is that on your wish list to get some? Send me an email. I'll help you out.
Yeah.
Support@bartonpublishing.com.
All right, here we go. Mary says, I am a diabetic type 2, and I'm taking cholesterol meds to keep my cholesterol levels down. I need to try to get my inflammation down. Is there a way to get off meds for cholesterol? And how do I get my inflammation down?
Okay, well, you didn't say what your cholesterol level was. So if your level was 180 and they gave you cholesterol medications, I would say X them immediately. Get rid of them immediately, because they're putting you at high risk for dying. So then what if your cholesterol was 350 and they put you on cholesterol medications? I would say you've got to find a better way to deal with that, and potentially with diet and supplements. But I have put, in 30 years, I've put 2 people on statin drugs. 2. I remember them because they had familial hypercholesterolemia, and there was no other way. They just had to be. When you have a cholesterol of 400 and it won't come down, then you just have to inhibit that cholesterol production because it's too much.
Yeah,
it's toxic.
We talk about this a lot on our Fixed Blood Sugar webinar, but many people are looking for doctors like you. And so we've recommended functional medicine doctors. What if someone is looking for a cardiologist? Can they look up functional cardiologist or?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Look up functional cardiology. So I did that once. I had somebody that had a complex heart problem and needed a cardiologist, and he said, "I am not going to any of these guys in town. They're like they're like cholesterol believers, and that's all." So we actually found someone in Los Angeles, which is 2 hours away from us, and so he went down there, but it was a drive. But he said, I don't go there every day. It's just few times a year, so it's not a big deal.
So, for example, Robert lives in Boca Raton, Florida. So, maybe go to Google.
Yeah. Start with Google, or if you look up functional medicine and you just call the office of any functional medicine doctor. Okay, who do you send to for cardiology? Who does functional cardiology? And they'll usually know.
That's a good idea. Mm-hmm. Okay. Good luck, Robert. Let us know how it goes. There are getting to be more and more doctors like doctors. I mean, there's no one like Dr. Saunders, but it's getting to be more similar.
I am unique.
Yeah. But there are a lot of people who care deeply about people and want to get to root causes, and they're coming out of the woodworks, which is great.
So there was a question by, I think it was Julie. What's the difference between integrative and functional? Integrative tends to use a lot of different modalities. So I used to have an integrative clinic, and we had a naturopathic doctor, and we had an acupuncturist, and we had a chiropractor, and we had functional. I was doing functional medicine, so we had we did IV vitamin treatments, and so we integrated holistic and various modalities. That's integrative. And what I decided was that because the integrative people were just focusing on, like, the acupuncturist would just like, everybody needs needles, and the herbalist is like everyone needs my herbs, and and we didn't work together as a group. So if you have an integrative system where people work together as a group and they can refer to each other and say, this would work best for you, you need this and this and this, and send them there. That can work well. But if you have an integrative clinic without a functional doctor that's looking at how to restore function, then they're just treating symptoms just like everybody else. And that's what I found. in my own office, that's what ended up happening, was everybody was just treating symptoms with their own modality.
Interesting. Okay. Let's see. Rick says, I have a calcium score of 363. I did a stress test and there weren't any obvious signs of blockage. I'm confused as why my LDL is 44. So where is this plaque?
Okay, perfect. Thank you. This is what we started out with today. What causes heart disease? Is LDL related to heart disease? No, 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 it's not. And you're a perfect example of that. That's not the issue. The issue is not cholesterol. The issue is clots. So the question, instead of asking, what is my cholesterol? You have a coronary calcium score over 300. So you have a significant amount of plaque in your arteries. That plaque is caused by clots. So why are you clotting? Or why are you not dissolving the clots? Those are the two questions you have to answer. And so if you go in the book, we have a list of tests to do all the tests, find out what the problem is, and then deal with the problem instead of going off on some tangent on cholesterol. Is completely irrelevant.
Yeah. Okay. Anonymous said, is the commercial Lifeline screening process worth taking to detect coronary problems?
I actually recommend it frequently to a lot of my patients. I tell them, okay, so our next step is for you to go to Lifeline screening and do their full thing. So they do ultrasounds of the carotid artery, and one of my colleagues said, "Oh, that's a scam." It's not a scam. As a matter of fact, when you look at the people that are doing these ultrasounds, the technicians, they do like, I don't know, 20 or 30 a day, every single day. And the people at the local radiology department won't do that in a month. And so the people that have the most experience are the ones that they see the most, and they can distinguish between the differences of like, oh, this is a bad case, oh, this is not a bad case, so that's actually pretty good, and they're better at finding things. So I recommend it frequently to look at the carotid arteries. Do you have plaque buildup in the carotid arteries? Look at the aorta. Do you have plaque buildup in the aorta? Do you have any aneurysms or anything like that? They check your peripheral arterial disease. They do the pressure above and below, and look to see if there's any damage. And then they look at EKG to see if you have atrial fibrillation, just kind of basic stuff, right? And they do the finger stick. They check your cholesterol and I think the blood sugar, hemoglobin A1C in the full panel. Not that the cholesterol is useful. I'm not saying that is, but it's a when you consider the cost of, what is it, $150 ish, and getting all of those tests done all at once, and having oh, there's a problem here. Oh, no, there's not a problem here. And being able to say there's not a problem here. So people who are told, oh, your cholesterol's high, you need to be on this medication, that medication, your blood pressure, you got to be this and that. And then you go, but is there a problem? But they never answered that. But you can do the Lifeline screening test and say, is there a problem? Yeah, there is. Okay, we got to do something about that. Yeah, it's only 20%. I don't care. You've got a problem. We got to do something about it. It's like the guy that just sent in his 363 coronary calcium score. You got a problem. And even though they say, oh, your arteries are clear, don't worry about it. No, you have a problem. You got to fix that. It's just not the problem that they're telling you it is. It's a different problem. So learn about the clotting.
Right. Okay, so I believe Elmer had sent the message about getting enough steps in, or not, a sedentary lifestyle. And so Elmer said, you misunderstood me. I walk 1 hour in the morning, then a couple of hours of physical housework, then 1 hour in the gym in the afternoon. And that still feels like it's not enough, as it leaves 10 hours of sitting. Sounds like awfully a lot.
Oh, yeah. You know what? Okay, so thank you. The research shows that if you have 10 hours of sitting and you get up and walk for a few minutes, it doesn't take much in between, like every, I don't know, set your alarm for every hour to go off. Okay, so I'm going to get up and walk around. Or every time you like, I need to finish this, and you have okay, I finished that. That's what I do. So I have like 8 inboxes that I have to go through. So when I finish my email inbox, then I get up to walk around, and then I go sit down, and then I finish my fax inbox, and then I get up and walk around. So doing that is, you can still have a sedentary lifestyle, but if you get up frequently throughout the day, it's better than doing your 1 hour of exercise in the morning, even though it's not the time wise, it's not necessarily more time of exercise, but not being sedentary the entire time is worse, or it's better to get up frequently.
So after this webinar, get up, take a little walk around your house, stroll around the block. There you go.
Exactly. Exactly.
All right. Priscilla says, if you have inflammation from rheumatoid arthritis, what should you do to prevent clotting? Any Barton products that can help?
Okay. Thank you for that. That is one of them. And that is a big deal. People who have rheumatoid conditions, autoimmune conditions, do get heart disease at a higher rate, and strokes and clots, because they do form clots. So your question of what to do about that is to find the cause of inflammation. So if you are inflamed, if your autoimmune disease is because of a reaction that you're having to something. I've had this actually. People with rheumatoid arthritis who can, their fingers are all, they don't work. They can only do this kind of thing. When we find out what's going on, why it's happening, then we can make the inflammation go away, and then they don't have any more risk. So that's a better way to do it. One woman I can remember specifically was tomatoes. She went off tomatoes, and she's like, oh my gosh, I can use my fingers again. I'm not stiff in the morning. I feel great. And then I went somewhere and I go, well, it's been a while. I haven't had tomatoes. I'm probably okay with it now. And she ate a tomato, and she's like, it all came back, just like, I can't function anymore. And so she's off tomatoes, and she was really sad about that because she really liked tomatoes. She goes, I'm Italian, you can't do this to me. But she did, and she's still better.
All right, let me see here. Are leg spasms in calves or thighs a sign of clots?
No, not specifically, and sometimes it can be, but spasms are caused by the muscles contracting and not having enough energy to relax, or not having ability to relax for some reason. And the common things are electrolyte abnormalities. So as your electrolytes change, your potassium, sodium balance, and then your calcium, magnesium balance are the most important. So if you have a lot of calcium, you're going to tend to get cramps. Magnesium helps to relax muscles. So electrolytes are the number one reason. The second most common reason would be something that's called claudication, which is a lack of blood flow or a lack of energy to the muscles. So, yeah.
Beverly says, reminder, only stress consistently raises cholesterol. Only exercise consistently lowers it. 80 to 85% is made by your body, which has a set point. But consider this, there are many forms of stress, and some are good. For example, working very hard toward a goal creates good stress.
Yes, and exercise is good stress. So, yeah. Thank you for that.
Hilda just wanted to testify to the fact that it was, I believe, through one of those lifeline screenings where it was found that her carotid was clogged 95%.
Yeah. So yeah, there's a problem. You got to do something about that.
Okay. And I think that's I think that's it. I know you need to go, Dr. Saunders. Yeah,
Awesome.
the other ones we can chat about. So we'll see you next week, Dr. Saunders. Thank you.
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Rita had said someone told her that the exercise pros don't work, especially the one where your feet just sit and move. Okay. I actually was talking with someone the other day who has one of those things where your feet just go like this
Oh, yeah.
at your
Mhm.
desk. Yes. But I'm talking about the full treadmill where you're standing up walking.
Mhm.
It's not, and it's not really a full treadmill. It's just, there's nothing on the sides. It's just the base.
Walking. It's just the circular band, and it's usually quite mine's narrow,
Yeah.
not as big and bulky, but I can like fold it up and put it away if I want to. But
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I think I need to get one of those. They're a lot cheaper than a treadmill. I can say that, but I'm also a little nervous that I'll fall off of it. So we'll see. I'll be at my desk. So, okay. Any other questions here?
We answered a lot of questions today. You went through
Great.
28. Love it.
Awesome. Okay, good. So come back next week, guys, for same webinar, same time. Bring a friend, invite a friend. And I mean, you could sit in your living room together and join if you want. Otherwise, you can also join us for our fixed blood sugar webinar, which is on Wednesdays at 1 p.m. Central, same type of format. And just so much good information is shared on these webinars. So we appreciate you guys asking questions. That's how we all learn. And just a lot of fun. So thank you, Cheryl. We'll see you next week.